Oh, this is okay. So I'm imagining this timeline that you like when you're talking about all this, and I want everybody listening to hear this because what Aubrey just said is she did what she was doing for a year and then she started creating content and then she listened to her audience and she like got that feedback. So it is a journey. And I think that this is what everybody loves and hates about podcasting is it's a process. Mm-hmm. It is not I'm going to put a few episodes out and get millions of downloads and be famous and do it like, that isn't right. Hold up. Wait a minute. That is not how this works. But a podcast can be such a crucial part of your journey, which is why I really want to talk about TikTok now. And I know you're like, wait, hang on, that's not a transition. Yes, it is, because I want Aubrey to tell you how she used her content. Like, did you use your podcast content kind of as your springboard to talk, like, tell us about your TikTok journey.
Yeah, so I'm sure like a lot of people, and again, I never thought I would be admitting this, but at the beginning of the pandemic, we all had this time on our hands. We were all home, and I was like, everybody's downloading TikTok, so I might as well download TikTok. And I just honestly stayed on it for about a year, close to a year, maybe like 10 months before I ever put anything out on the platform, and just used it as like, I'm killing time. Like, it was one of those apps that kind of sucked you in. But I think what helped me there was to kind of see, okay, like, what's showing up for me? Like, what do I really like to see? And just kind of like studying it and learning it. I wish I would have, jumped the gun a little, because I was in my head and like, I can't post anything and who am I and all this stuff. I'm so afraid to do it. So I wish I wouldn't have waited as long, but I think that kind of helped me just like get comfortable with seeing like what people were doing. And so yeah, that started at the beginning of the pandemic, but it was about a year ago now. So February of 2021, where I had my podcast going, and that was great, and I was promoting it on Instagram, but Instagram was just kind of feeling like stagnant for me, and I was just kind of seeing a lot of the same people. And I like to view things in my business, anytime I'm going to try something new that feels extremely scary and overwhelming, I tell myself, let's just do an experiment. Let's just try this out and give it 30 days, see what happens with it. You don't have, you have to be consistent with it, but it kind of takes that pressure of it's all or nothing, or it has to work for me, or, I just kind of like go into it like, I'm just going to try it, see what happens. And so that's what I set out to do at the beginning of February of last year. And I was posting videos, and I was taking a lot of the content that I already had, because that's the great thing about podcasting too, is now, like, even though I've been doing it for a while, and sometimes like it does take a while for those downloads to come in, like now, anytime I push somebody there, that content is there for them to go back and binge. So it was kind of a great segue too, because then people would come from the different ways that they were finding me to my podcast, and they're like, oh, like she knows what she's talking about. She's been doing this for a while. Like, all that was there too. But I already had a lot of the content. I had already been producing these episodes and putting them out there, so I could just take little pieces of it. Like, if I had an episode on 5 tips, like I could break that down into 5 different videos. Like, I could have a series, like 5 tips to finding new clients for your business. And so I could have like finding new clients part 1 and then part 2, and do these different videos. And that's a really great way to bring in new followers, because once they see part 1, they're like, oh, okay, like she's going to have another one and after this. And so they start to bring it in, and then they start to follow along. But yeah, like that was because I wasn't reinventing the wheel with trying to come up with all this content, because I was very specific about what I was posting about. I think that's another thing that's really helped me on TikTok, is I didn't go in with, oh, I'm going to post a little bit about this and this. And this is what I'm posting about. This is who I'm trying to target on this platform. I'm going to be super consistent with how I'm posting, so that they know I can come back to her day after day, and there's going to be stuff there for me to devour. And I was also not, I was working smarter, not harder, and taking the stuff that I had already done and just transitioning the format of it. Instead of it being a podcast episode, I was doing maybe just a video. And now I think people are more comfortable with it because Instagram has Reels, and they see that too. But just kind of taking that piece and breaking it into smaller pieces, so that I had that, just another way for people to find me too.
Oh, this is so good. And I am the biggest fan of repurposing all the things. Like, don't start from scratch. If you've done it, don't reinvent the wheel. Just maybe reinvent the content to be specific to the platform, which I think, you have a fantastic system. This is so incredible. I actually was looking at your TikTok earlier, because I was like, okay, I want to know, I want to learn from you. Like, I'm selfishly wanting to learn, because I feel comfortable doing Reels, and I have different ways that I do it. But I, like you, was on TikTok consuming tons of content, and I did a few things with the kids, and they were like, oh, let's, like, everybody's on TikTok, Mom, we should do this. I'm like, okay, let's do these dumb things. But like you said, I did the opposite of what you did. I did not commit to doing it for 30 days. I've been kind of wishy-washy on how I wanted to do it because I felt like it was a little overwhelming. And so I want to talk about that real fast. Is there any part of your journey where you're posting consistently? Like, what was the thing where you're like, this is working? Did you have like an aha moment or like a video that went viral? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, so it was during that like 30-day experiment. And I think I was on like day 28 and I was like, this isn't working. I was like, I'm going to finish it out because I committed to this, but this is not working. And I think it was on like day 28 or 29 where I had a video that like gave me a little glimmer of hope. And, so people started coming in and started commenting. And I'm like, okay, like there's anytime I feel like, because I'm on the app so much, that anytime I think of something, I think of like a TikTok video, a sound that they've done. Like I think it's from, oh gosh, now I'm not going to remember it, but it's like, oh, they're liking it. They're commenting on it. I can't think of it, and I'm probably going to sound so silly doing it. I try to talk. I tell my husband it's like TikTok language. I'm like, I'll say this thing, and he's like, is that another thing from TikTok? I'm like, yeah, it is. But yeah, so I started to see that people were liking it, and I think another thing, so I was talking about like the bridge from taking my podcast content and just repurposing it, making it a different format. But another thing that I was seeing was once my video started to gain traction, I started to gain followers, and people started to like, again, people were coming to me like, well, what's a virtual assistant? And started to ask those questions. What I was able to do was to take some of those questions that I saw coming up a lot, and I was able to create a podcast episode for it. And so when that question came up in the comments, I would say, I just created a podcast episode where I go way more into depth on this, because at the time, I think you could only do the longest TikTok video you could do was 60 seconds. And the comments that you can type back are maybe 150 characters. So I would tell them that like, there's only so much that I can do in a 60-second TikTok or a 150 character comment. So go listen to my podcast. And so then I was getting them from just being on the TikTok platform when they were following me to, oh, she has a podcast. She has more stuff I can go learn from her from. Okay, great. I'm going to go over here and listen to this. And then of course, when you have a podcast, you want to keep people in your funnel. That's your top of funnel. So how are you getting them on your email list, and how are you getting them into your community more, and how are you starting to get them to buy in? So it was kind of like this crazy like workaround of I'm getting them from one platform to the next, and then I'm kind of wrapping them in and getting their feedback on things. And again, like we talked about in the beginning, like listening to your audience and seeing like what is it that they're wanting. Because sometimes for me, again, like I was under the assumption that everybody knew about virtual assistant, but then I would get questions like that would seem, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but to me would be like basic things. And I'm like, oh, maybe I haven't taken the time to really explain this in depth. So let me create a podcast episode on it. So now that it's there, so anybody who finds me from anywhere, they have this and they can go refer back to it.
Okay. This is like, it's such good information. I love hearing you say this because I feel like I think of a lot of the things that you just said, but you articulated it so well in the fact that I think of it like a spider web. Like when you have your podcast, you have your Instagram, your Facebook group, your TikTok, your email list, your programs, like all of it is part of the funnel. It just depends on where someone lands or connects with you on how engaged they'll be. And it really is all about meeting people where they're at. So if you have people that are looking for this type of, or maybe they don't even know they're looking for this type of information. Maybe like you said, they were just like you, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I want to make some extra money while I'm at home. How can I actually make this possible? And then boom, Audrey pops up in a TikTok video and she's like, I have all the answers to your problems. Like, come hang out with me. Like, I think it's awesome. And then you're able to say, here's a longer form, a 30-minute episode about exactly what you're looking for. This is your action plan. This is how to get you going further on this. But I do want to talk about some of the dark side of what you've encountered on TikTok, because I looked up your TikTok before, we started chatting, and I told you, I was like, there's one video, like it has 4.5 million views. That's incredible. And then I saw some in the comments that were not so nice. So tell us a little bit about, is that like one video that's just been like super, super viral for you? And I know you said a little bit about the negative comments. Just tell me all the things about that one video.
Yeah. So I would get things here and there. I would say the main thing that people would comment about, and it wasn't really like negative towards me. More so people being like, oh, this sounds like an MLM, like she's trying to scam you. So it was kind of, at first I went under the assumption of, well, maybe they just don't know. Like, again, I don't want to assume anything about, just like I was assuming everybody should know about, you know, being a virtual assistant. I don't want to assume anything. So I was creating content to kind of like, you know, do like those Mythbusters type things. Like, this is why it's not an MLM. And then I was like, well, I'm going to, again, why don't I create a podcast episode on this? So, you know, I was doing that. But yeah, that video for me, that was the highest video that I've had